couple years ago, right before the COVID hit, we actually did our last in-person introduction to Arbor Week grants down in Southern California. Nedra, you were probably there. And so we are continuing to have these Arbor Week grants, and we want to just go over what the guidelines are for this. It's also, we typically, when we're in person, we think of it as a really good opportunity for people to network and see who else is in the neighborhood. That's when we were literally doing them in San Bernardino. Because this is Zoom, it's covering a larger geographic spread, but this is a chance for you to talk to people that are working on these kind of projects. So it's twofold. It's to offer you the opportunity to find more information out that might help you with your grant program, and also to connect and to ask any questions you might have, like Catherine, you had. So that's what we're doing today. Feel free to interrupt at any point with any questions or comments. And this is for you, so ask anything. This is just a simple review of what's going on. Today is that auspicious day of the second month of 22nd, whatever, but you've got till the mid-month for the applications to be due. The projects need to be completed by May 31st. You know, over the past few years, we've had different dates on the Arbor Week grants where we've tried to spread them out to the end of the year. We spread them one time because of COVID to give you more time. And that, and so this time though, because of the grant funding and the way the cycle has changed with some of the funders, we really would prefer that they all be done before the summer hits. And then we need to get in final reports in the summertime. So that's why it's got this kind of a timing. The grants are $2,000 to $5,000. You know, don't be shy. Ask for what you think you need. And we're hoping that you'll plant several trees. But there's always a possibility that you could ask for 5 and we might juggle it down to 4 if we have, depending on who the grantees are, the grant awards are. This is, because it's a fast grant and because it's a small grant, we're making life easier. This is not the kind of grant where you have to do a lot of reimbursement forms. You don't have to send us your receipts. This is literally, we were going to give you 50% upon award and then 50% upon completion in the final report. That's really kind of your receipt, is your final report and the photographs and whatnot that we can use to show the funders, who in this case are Edison and San Diego Gas and Electric, what work was done. So we're keeping it pretty simple. Sarah's created a template for the final report that asks a bunch of questions and leads you right through it. For those of you who don't know us, we're the umbrella organization for urban forest nonprofits in California. We were started in '89 when they said that the 10 groups that were around at the time said we need to come together to learn from each other. Some of the names here, you'll see Sustainable Claremont's on there. I was trying to find Sisters We logo, but I was having a hard time because I was working remotely. But here are some of the groups that are already part of our network. As we said, it's upwards of 90 or between 75 and 100 at any given point. Next, here's a map. It's always kind of cool to look at the map. The map is available on our website so that you can see where everybody is. This is not quite the last time we met in public. I think the last time we met in public was in LA, and this is the one that was in Sacramento at the California Endowment. But since then, we've had 2 Zoom networks, and Zoom is good, but it's not the same as in person.
Network retreats.
Network retreats, right. We always get this question. It has to be within the utility scope, especially since we want you to invite them out to visit. These are introductory celebration grants. Anybody can apply, but we kind of tend to use them as a way to entice new groups in to join the network and to get deeper into tree planting. So we want you to make them a celebration. We are celebrating Arbor Week, and we are wanting you to engage your community as always. And Sarah, feel free to jump in if I'm missing anything, if you want to make any comments.
Yeah, I think that's a good introduction to just the Arbor Week program is really about celebrating trees in your community and engaging with your community to learn about trees. And so yeah, that looks different these days with COVID, but people are finding different creative ways to do COVID safe events that still get folks out, or they're doing online like outreach or education programs, or just, yeah, with having people masked and outdoors and celebrating trees. That's really the focus of it.
We have also said that one of the things that we've heard from people is that they're having more people going out and doing things on their own, such as watering the trees or making sure that they've removed stakes and that sort of thing. Or some people are logging their trees on their mapping site apps on their phone. So continuing to water the trees after they were planted could be done by volunteers later.
Yeah, it helps having volunteers involved in in the process of planting, right? Helps them feel connected to the trees and hopefully help take care of them afterwards. I skipped a slide. Here's your 4 pillars.
Yeah, it's not a big grant. You may have another grant that could help bolster this. That's always welcome, right? But keep it simple and fun. Again, people kind of talk to us about why do we work with grassroots groups? It's because we believe that the people that live around the trees should take care of the trees and should care about the trees. So that's why it's community engagement. It's not industrial, right? Again, celebrate trees in Arbor Week and set up that easy watering plan because it's going to be hot, as we know.
Yeah, Kristen, you have a question.
I had a question. So last year was really special and we were able, because of the extension, to wait till the kids were back in school and do some really cool events. And then we'd put together, like, edited these short little films and had the principals do all these thank yous and posted those on social media and tagged everybody, and then got and I think, Sarah, you might have read my report about that. So I'm happy to do that again. We had our board of directors come out from the school district and the whole shebang. So are you wanting us to kind of do videos, or are pictures fine? Our principals had like a script, and I mean, we went
gosh,
like all out last year. So happy to do that again, but just kind of wondering, when you say, like, the slide before this kind of had some things on it of like pictures and some other stuff. What are you envisioning for social media, and how would you like us to tag you?
That's a great question. We have some specifics that we can send out to grantees about social media, about like tagging us and the sponsors.
Okay.
And like some hashtags.
Okay.
And then, yeah, the videos and stuff were amazing. And we also don't expect, that's a high bar. Like, also just like some really great photos. We love seeing great photos, which I'm going to talk about here. So that's a good segue into the photos. That's a big part of these events, is we like to see photos of the kids or the community out planting trees. Well, I will send a handout, will be emailed to you afterwards about just some reminders, but we like to have everyone be thinking about it as they're planning their events, to really make the photos and the press and elected officials part of the plan. So some tips on photos, just like that we often say, is get down and have different angles, different processes in the tree planting process, not just the tree going in the ground, but inspecting the roots and watering and mulching. And then, yeah, getting people down on the ground. One of the tips I really like to say with photos is it's a great thing to delegate. Like, you all will be planning these events and, trying to make it all come together. So if you have a volunteer there, even a teenager might be really good with a cell phone camera. And that's a really nice thing to delegate to someone, to let them that be their focus for the day, so that you can get some really good shots. In the final report, we also ask for a quote from an attendee. So that would be a good thing to delegate to have someone that day be asking people for a quote about what the event meant to them. And that's something you can share on social media. And I know it's an easy thing to forget when you're trying to plan a whole event. So, but I also like to give people warnings, so that's not a surprise when you see it in the final report. social media, yeah, just sharing those photos, tagging us, tagging the sponsors, really goes a long way to helping us continue to cultivate these relationships with the sponsors. Press, because these are public events and it's really about celebrating trees and educating the community, it's a really great time to engage with the press just to help spread the word even more. We find that like local papers or newsletters can be really great options. They're often looking for like good stories or feel good news that's happening in the community. So everyone coming together to talk about or to plant trees is a fun thing for them to get to report on. So we know that you all can't, and this goes for elected officials too, you all can't guarantee that you'll get press coverage or elected officials to come, but we ask that you at least try, just to make that part of the flow of the event. And then, yeah, elected officials, same thing. It's a good photo op for them and a good chance for them to connect with the community. And then that's just helping spread the word with local decision makers about urban trees in your community and how important they are, and seeing the community support for them. So those are four pieces to the non-tree pieces of the tree event that we like to make sure we talk about. Does that somewhat answer your question a little bit more, Kristen?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if SCE is gonna, I mean, we tagged everybody and did all that and nobody said anything or liked anything. So I don't want to bug you before the reports due, but we were putting it up the week we did it. So I'm happy to shoot an email and say like, hey, it's up.
Yeah.
And obviously I turned it in with the report, but last year was that extended COVID thing too. So we did one in April and then the rest were in October because it was just so hot.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure we were doing our part to get you the stuff.
Yes, thank you. And then we take all of the photos and press and social media posts that you all do, and then we share those with the sponsors. So then we'll take like a screenshot of something so they can see that the word has been out and that they've been tagged. So yeah, that's great.
Thanks.
There we go. Oh, back to you, Cindy.
These are just some of the resources. And, you know, some of you have got this all wired and don't need it, but we've got these links on our website. As far as there's the application again, if you lost it by any chance, the benefits of trees in one of our newer publications, Trees for the 21st Century. And then about selecting trees, planting and caring for trees in drought, right? You know, I don't know if you guys were involved in discussions about drought. There was a webinar that we were on with the city of LA, and people are saying that we can't even call it a drought anymore. It's like the aridification of California, which is a really long mouthful and kind of depressing, but we need to be sure that people are being trained on what can you do to water trees and how little trees actually need if you're not spray watering the lawns, et cetera. And we're going to send another email separately with a sample volunteer and photo waiver form if you don't happen to have one. And then we have some other information from some other groups about checklists for their tree planting events.
And a lot of these resources focus on tree selection, which is such an important part of that drought, and just your trees lasting a long time. Trees for the 21st century, a big part of that is about choosing trees that will have as many co-benefits for your community as, you know, or maximizing those co-benefits. And so, yeah, we also have a new website where all these resources are now posted. So check it out. And that's more along those lines, some more tree selection.
Yeah, Select Tree is the Cal Poly website, which has a lot of information on trees. At one point, we talked about Select Tree as having more information about trees in Southern California. So just FYI, a lot of you, all of you are from Southern California, so that's really helpful. But we also included from more local places like the 29 Palms Water District, the UC Riverside, and San Bernardino, so that it would be more appropriate.
And you also all have urban foresters that are local to your area from CAL FIRE that are available as resources if you get grants that can help talk through tips and tree selection with you as well.
Yeah, when we did these in person, we would have the local CAL FIRE urban foresters show up, but we have a list of all the urban foresters, and we can share that too.
And Hellscape.
Mm-hmm.
Hellscape is a resource for selecting trees. And also information about where they can be purchased.
Could you say that again? Hellscape?
Oh my goodness, I need to send you some information. CLSCAPE.org.
.org. Okay. Cool. So now just opening it up for questions. It is, like we said, our kind of intro easier grant. And hopefully you can have fun with it.
You can also put questions in the chat if you would like, but not seeing any. Yeah, Melissa, did you have something?
I am wondering, you mentioned that those you're going to have a preference for people who haven't, submitted and gotten help before. So would it be helpful for our organization to perhaps have a partnership with somebody who's new to bring someone new in, or should we just apply and fingers crossed?
We love partnerships.
Okay.
When it comes to our bigger grants, the ones that we get through CAL FIRE, we diligently look at who they say their partners are and try to see how, I guess you could say, authentic the relationship is. Does it look like it's a real relationship? Because it bonds the neighbors together around the activity is really helpful. So definitely.
Okay, thank you. Because we're trying to get into a local school, working with the principal, but so far we are not positive it's going to be a relationship that moves forward. But we're talking about, there's a huge lawn, expensive lawn. We're talking with them about putting in a food forest. So I don't know if that meets the tree criteria, but it's in progress.
A food forest, as far as these kind of grants, we're not saying that you have to get a lot of carbon sequestration out of them. That was kind of a stumbling point in doing our greenhouse gas reduction fund grants, because a lot of people wanted to put in fruit trees, but they don't sequester a lot of carbon, and we couldn't make the case that they were reducing vehicle miles traveled from Chile. But this is perfect for that.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
The only thing I'll say, okay, go ahead.
For me?
Sorry.
Okay, so we are going to do some plantings at schools. And I wondered, for like a $5,000 grant, what would be the number of trees that you might expect?
Well, it depends on what you're gonna, in a lot of ways, it's up to you, because you're talking a food forest, you could be, well, I guess you can't get bare root trees right at this point.
Well, we're going to get, we're not doing the food forest. We're going to, we have to get 24-inch box trees because they won't let us at the schools plant smaller trees because the kids just wreck them. And so we're going to get slightly bigger trees. And then as part of our watering plan for some of the trees, we're getting those ooze bags that go around them, and then we have a brigade coming out and refilling them every once in a while. So we would want to get the trees, the ooze bags, the sticks, and that's how we would spend our money. But so that would probably buy about 15 trees, maybe. Is that enough?
Especially if you're talking about 24-inch box trees, because 24-inch box trees are not
Way more expensive.
Yeah. The only other thing I'd say is, what you talked about is that the school won't allow anything less than 24-inch box.
Right.
Some of the schools I've talked to and some of the other groups I've talked to, what they've managed to do is convince the schools that they can get by with a 15-gallon tree. If they do, like, instead of just 2 posts, two on either side, they have wooden posts like on 4 sides. And sometimes they even like put a wooden slat across it to protect the tree. You have to make it back and take it off, but you to try 24-inch box are just really expensive. And a lot of times they might survive or not. It's easier for a smaller tree to adapt, right?
Right,
So you might want to rethink that. But the
okay.
talking the ooze bags, I mean, there's all different kinds of things out there.
Uh-huh.
But
Water.
yeah, if you can, I know some school districts sometimes have like hard rules.
Right,
So yeah, I think it's worth a shot to try and to see if you can talk to them about a 15-gallon. And if you have to do the 24-inch box, I think just mention that in your application so that we know when we're reviewing that you've tried and that you're stuck with those.
uh-huh. But generally, for a $5,000 grant, you would want all of it to be spent on probably 15-gallon trees and the stakes and 100% on that. Okay.
You're asking that as if it's a question, you know. Sometimes people are able to bring money from other places, right? So, or you can get the trees donated. That's
Right.
the thing that we wanted to bring up. This is only a $5,000 grant. You could conceivably, as having worked at a small nonprofit here in town, sometimes you can go to places like Walmart or whatever, and they'll give you a $2,500 grant, right?
Right.
So that you can use pretty much on anything. So maybe you want to partner with some other funding, depending on how big your project is, right? If you want to put in more 24-inch box trees or whatever.
Yeah.
Gallon trees. So
I think that my question is is not that we do have some funding from other sources.
okay.
But what my question is that for a $5,000 grant, what would be the scope that you would expect?
We're trying to be flexible, you know, and I think that's where we've had in the past certain numbers associated with the grants, and we're trying to be a little bit more flexible on that. And we would like a reasonable number of trees, you know, like San Diego Gas and Electric has got goals now about how many trees they're trying to plant every year. So more is better, or more is really good, but also making it a really good experience for the attendees is important too.
Yeah. And then the last question is that most of them are going to be planted in school. We're also working with Parks and Rec. Is that something that's allowed to plant a tree on park property?
Absolutely.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah. It used to be that all the grants, before the grants that we used to get, they could only be planted on public property when the funding came from CAL FIRE.
Uh-huh.
And then only recently have they allowed it to be planted on private property because it was being planted for greenhouse gas sequestration, which takes place anywhere. Parks are great. Parks already have an irrigation system in place. Hopefully does, you know, that sort of.
Okay.
But no, it's open.
Thank you.
Thanks for the questions.
I just wanted to share a creative tip about the 15-gallon and the 24-inch boxes we did last year. We went to a local nursery and were able to get them the week before they were going to be transferred into 24-inch boxes, but they were still in 15-gallon pots. So we were able to get a whole bunch of strawberry trees, which often people don't think of as school fruit trees. We're actually, they're never sold. The fruit's never sold because it's too fragile. We're actually going to be collecting that for our garden program, and they're drought tolerant. They're really pretty. But that's a really good tree for a food forest. And you can catch them before they get into the 24-inch boxes. So
wow.
So,
and the roots were okay. They weren't root bound, right? They weren't, or they had.
I mean, they were about to be moved, but we've been maintaining them and watering them and checking an eye on them. There was one that we were kind of thinking we might have to replace, but it hung on. And actually, I'm really proud because we had that giant windstorm and all of our trees made it, and the city arborist trees all fell down. And I was like, feel really bad for you guys, but I'm also really excited that all of our trees made it through. So yeah.
As far as types of things that are eligible to expenditure of the funds. So I'm thinking about community engagement, possibly something like providing food at the event. Would that be, you know, an allowable expense?
Yeah, and as a reminder, we don't ask for a budget for these grants and we don't collect receipts. So it's really up to you what you spend our money on versus what you get donated versus what another you get funded with another funding source. So yeah, we're just kind of asking for a picture of what the event will look like overall, and yeah, it's if some of that is for food for making it a community event, then
Okay.
that makes sense. And
Is there any limitation on the size of the trees? So you were talking about large size. Can we do really small valley oaks?
Yeah, I
I have
those are
acorns.
better.
I have acorns now. Well, I need them in the ground now. They can't, it's unlikely for them to be really good by March or April. So I will put them in pots. They'll be little tiny seedlings.
That, when we talk about seedlings, a lot of times it was like a deep pot, and a deep pot's really
Yeah,
long and
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
fairly
That's
big.
what I'm putting them in. I'm putting them in a tall, a short one.
Yeah, I guess I would say these are not acorn plantings, A, and B, if your seedlings are really, really small, I would, the smallest we'd really want to go would probably be a 5-gallon. And we think that the difference between a 5-gallon and a 15-gallon, they catch up really quickly.
Yeah, 5 gallons are better, really, for the.
Yeah. So it depends, now, Catherine, you're not planting this in a schoolyard, right? You're planting.
No, this would be in a park. It would be with a protective sleeve.
All right. I think that would be good. It would be good if you could have a mix, just because we worry about survivability. But yeah, been there. How many can we get? How much can we do? If we do smaller, we can do more, right?
Right. And, when you talk about trees that with massive root systems like oaks, if you let them go from acorns, they grow really, really well.
As long as the dirt is good, right? As long as it's not.
Where you're putting it, or you mean the dirt where you're putting it?
Yeah.
Fortunate in that we have a river corridor. So they love it there.
Good.
any other questions?
We're at 2:36. And the other thing is, I guess this is due on the 15th. So a little time. Feel free to call with other questions at any point. Or once you're into the grant, if something comes up, you needed to chat about it, just let us know. And
That'd be very different and nice to write a grant application and not have to do a budget on it.
isn't it amazing?
Yay!
It's like a ticket to pass go or whatever it is, So cool.
I'm gonna stop the